NFL, there are genius head coaches, elite head coaches like Bill Belichick, Andy Reid, Sean McVay, Sean Payton, the cream of the crop, the creme de la creme. And then there's Matt Nagy, the raw chicken.
It's fucking redder than your beard, and look at me, we're still raw!
While it took many Bears fans, including myself, a lot of time to realize that Matt Nagy is truly the problem with the Chicago Bears, and that Matt Nagy quite possibly might be the worst head coach in the NFL, it is crystal clear. Matt Nagy has no place on the Chicago Bears, and right now is considered a detriment to his rookie quarterback, Justin Fields. And if the storyline continues, Matt Nagy will ruin Justin Fields just like he did to Mitchell Trubisky, Nick Foles. And if Matt Nagy continues to be the head coach of the Chicago Bears, Justin Fields will be the next victim of ruined quarterbacks in the Matt Nagy's system. At this point, the fact that Matt Nagy is the head coach despite being claimed an offensive genius is alarming, is astonishing. The fact that Matt Nagy has the worst offense in the NFL still has a job is unbeknownst to me. I don't know what Matt Nagy has on the Chicago Bears. The fact that he still has a job keeps me at night every single day. Now, to really understand how Matt Nagy got to this place, we have to fast forward back into Matt Nagy's life and how he got into the NFL. Now, Matt Nagy got his first start in the NFL when he entered twice with the Philadelphia Eagles. From there, he was able to move himself up to offensive quality coach when Doug Peterson got named offensive coordinator. Matt Nagy's big break, though, wouldn't come until Andy Reid would be hired by the Kansas City Chiefs, and Andy Reid brought Matt Nagy to be the quarterback's coach and Doug Peterson to be the offensive coordinator. Then, when Doug Peterson left for the Eagles, Matt Nagy got promoted to co-offense coordinator with Brian Childers, and eventually Matt Nagy became the offense coordinator in 2017, where he helped the Kansas City Chiefs have one of the most historical runs, making the playoffs and having one of the best offensives in the world. The Kansas City Chiefs in 2017, under Matt Nagy's leadership, was ranked 5th best in 2017, and quarterback Alex Smith had a 104.7 passer rating, threw for 26 touchdowns and 4,440. The Chiefs were 4-1. Then Chiefs lost to the Tennessee Titans after blowing a 21 deficit, and they lost 22-21. And there were many rumors that Andy Reid had taken over play calling, and that is why the Chiefs lost. But Matt Nagy came out and said that was a failure in his book and that he should have done better. Now, following that game, many people said, oh my god, Matt Nagy never really ran the ball, and that was one of the reasons that they lost. Now, this was never proven, but I just wanted to put out there as right now, the Chicago Bears don't really run the ball under Matt Nagy's leadership, when the Chicago Bears have two really good running backs in Khalil Herbert and David Montgomery. So I just thought that was well pointing out. But let's discuss how Matt Nagy got to Chicago Bears. Now, following that historical run in 2017, Matt Nagy was a pretty hot commodity in the head coaching rank. Now, Matt Nagy was able to get an interview with the Indianapolis Colts, but eventually that job never came through, and he was hired by the Chicago Bears and Ryan Payton in the 2018 offseason. And that 2018 offseason was pretty special, one of the best offseasons in Chicago Bears history. So first up, the Chicago Bears started off by drafting Roquan Smith, drafting guys like Anthony Miller, who in his time with the Chicago Bears, when good, was pretty elite. Drafted James Daniels, drafted Bilal Nichols. All of these players were at some point were pretty impactful players for us, and some of them still are pretty impactful players for us. And who can forget one of the biggest trades the Chicago Bears pulled off, and that was shocking the entire NFL world by getting Khalil Mack from the Raiders. That was one of the biggest trades that happened in the 2018 offseason, and really kind of foreshadowed what would come in that 2018 season, and that would be speciality. That would be a season that we have never seen in Chicago Bears history. That one of the most special seasons to Chicago Bears fans, and something that still has not been topped out. I mean, the Chicago Bears went 12-4 in 2018, and they were really, really good. They had the best defense. And offensively, I mean, they were pretty decent. They put up 6 touchdowns against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They were able to score 24 plus points or more in 13 games. They even put up 31 points against the Patriots, and they nearly beat them. They put 41 points against the Buffalo Bills, 34 24 against Detroit. And yeah, those are some pretty elite numbers by Chicago Bears and some that has not been topped off since 2018. Now, despite that stellar offense in 2018, it's not like we were entirely successful on the offensive side of the ball. Chicago Bears ranked 20th offensive DVOA and were 21st in yards per game, an average points of 23 points per game, and were 9th in PPG. I mean, those numbers aren't the best, but those are numbers that you expect a coach of the year. Those are numbers you expect great coaches like Sean McVay to improve upon. And those are numbers that you expect a coach of the year to get better on. But somehow the Chicago Bears got worse offensively. You expect a coach of the year to go and say, okay, this is what my quarterback did right. This is what my quarterback didn't do right. Let's keep doing what my quarterback can do right. Let's fix what he cannot do right. Let's change the playbook based on his incapability or things that he's just having a hard time doing. Okay, this is what the offense is doing right. Keep doing that. Okay, this is what the offense isn't doing right. So let's go ahead and fix that. That's what you expect a coach of the year to do. And you certainly don't expect a coach of the year to regress pretty exponentially offensively that Matt Nagy did in 2019. And sure, we can blame Mitch's inabilities in 2019 for the offensive woes. But at the end, it's up to the head coach to win. It's up to the head coach to fix those issues. And that never happened. Anyway, I'm a stats guy, so let's look at the stats. So the Chicago Bears went from scoring 23 points per game to just scoring 17.5 points per game. They went from being the 21st in the league in yards per game to being 29th in yards per game, having 296 yards per game. On third down and conversions, they were 35.6% accurate and they're 52.2% accurate in the red zone, 24th in the league. And those are numbers that you don't expect a former coach of the year to put up. Those are numbers that you look and say, is this guy really a coach of the year or is he a fraud? But for many of us Bears fans, we said, okay, maybe that's just due to Mitchell Trubisky because, there were times when Mitchell Trubisky couldn't really read a defense or he would just throw interceptions. And you were saying, okay, we can certainly blame 2019 on Mitchell Trubisky. 2020, we're going to get better because maybe Mitchell Trubisky will improve. Maybe Matt Nagy will do some things to help Mitchell Trubisky improve. And also, hey, this is a prove-it year for Mitch. This is where Mitch is going to be the best. So that's what we expected from Mitch in 2020. But in 2020 was just the same old story. And in 2020, we fully came to the realization, at least some of us, that Matt Nagy was truly the issue for the Chicago Bears' problems. In 2020, Chicago Bears ranked 26th in yards per game and 22nd in points per game. And those numbers don't even factor in what happened in 2020 offensively. I mean, we saw Matt Nagy bench Mitchell Trubisky in the worst way possible in week 3, then go with Nick Foles, failed that experiment miserably, then Nick Foles gets injured, Matt Nagy goes back to Mitchell, and it was just a mess all around. Then you also had Matt Nagy give up play calling for like a few games, and then, rumors say that Matt Nagy retook play calling. So things that you don't expect a coach of the year to do, things you don't expect the offensive genius to do. And Matt Nagy is a proponent of all these Bears issues when he made all those silly, drastic moves and moves that I don't even have any words to say on how awful they were. Not to mention, Matt Nagy just might be one of the most stubborn coaches in the NFL. This guy never played in Mitchell Trubisky's strengths, running play action, running that quick action offense so that Mitchell Trubisky doesn't have to process all these complicated plays. Matt Nagy never did that. Furthermore, it took Matt Nagy until after half of the season to realize that he had to give up play. He was so stubborn, saying, no, it's not on me that the offensive issues are, it's on my quarterbacks. Mitchell Trubisky and Nick Foles, the same quarterback that he wanted to bring in, have competition with Mitchell Trubisky. He blamed those quarterbacks before himself. And let me tell you, a leader, when things go south, a leader blames themselves. A leader blames himself for the issues, and a leader say, hey, that's on me. That's what I did wrong, and I'm sorry about that. But Matt Nagy is no leader. He's not a good head coach. And keep that with the fact that Matt Nagy had one of the worst performances 2019 and 2020. I think there's just room for him to be fired this year. We're not even factor in 2021. We're not even factor in the Chicago Bears are ranked 32nd offensive. The Jets, the Houston Texans are better than us this year offensive. That's just bad. Justin Fields is one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean, I don't even know how to comprehend with that. I don't even know how a head coach allows that to happen. Matt Nagy is still being stubborn. Sure, Bill Lazor is called, but it's Matt Nagy's playbook. Matt Nagy's playbook doesn't adapt to Justin Fields. It's more geared towards Andy Dalton. Stubbornness from Matt Nagy is still showing 2021. You saw Matt Nagy keep on saying time time after time again, Andy Dalton is our starter and not in this a fair competition between Justin Fields and Dalton. We never saw that from Matt Nagy. Furthermore, if it wasn't for upper management, Matt Nagy will still be sticking to his quote-unquote plan where Andy Dalton would be starter and Justin Fields on the bench. If it weren't for upper management pushing Justin Fields to start, who knows what could have happened? Who knows if Andy Dalton's starting right now? That's a question that remains to be unseen, that we'll never know the answer. And it took Matt Nagy a few weeks to realize again that he's the problem offensively, that he is the cause of all the Chicago Bears' offensive issues. And I honestly think that Matt Nagy's biggest issue is his stubbornness and his inability to adapt to his quarterback. It's why Mitch failed. It's why Nick Foles failed. It's why Justin Fields is failing right now in the Matt Nagy system. And if he makes all this in, that is really fire Matt Nagy. But if that's not enough, let's talk about how Matt Nagy has played injuries under the rug, like with Kevin Jenkins, Tariq Cohen, so many others. Matt Nagy has completely downplayed the injuries and not told us the truth. I mean, it's ludicrous that Matt Nagy does this, and I think all of these reasons are room for Matt Nagy to be fired. And that moves us into our next chapter. So let's say the Chicago Bears fire Matt Nagy. What should they do? Well, if I was Chicago Bears, this is what I would do. So I would probably look into hiring someone like Brian Daboll. Honestly, Brian Daboll was my number one on this list. Brian Daboll was responsible for the Buffalo Bills' turnaround offensive. You know, Brian Daboll made the Buffalo Bills go from one of the worst offenses to one of the best in NFL. He made Josh Allen, who used to look like Mitchell Trubisky, into an NFL MVP. And Josh Allen and Justin Fields have pretty similar game. And if you think about the Bills offensively, they have a pretty similar offense to what we have right now. They have that speed. You know, Stephon Diggs and Darnell Mooney are kind of the same wide receivers. And offensively, I think the Chicago Bears are very much like the Bills, and Brian Daboll would fit in perfectly with the Bears right here. Also, another great candidate is Greg Roman from the Ravens, who helped Lamar Jackson become one of the most successful quarterbacks. Again, another quarterback like Justin Fields. Greg Roman has had experience with making quarterbacks look good, and I would love to see Greg Roman here with the Chicago Bears. But if you wanted to go with someone younger, perhaps someone like Kellen Moore, who's responsible for Dak Prescott around, who's responsible for making Dak Prescott a MVP, or someone like Joe Brady that an insane amount of success at LSU, or Joe Burrow, and until recently, a lot of success with Sam Darnold. So I like all of these candidates in the NFL. But if you want to talk about college, we can talk about that too. I think some names that come to mind are Lincoln Riley, pretty good quarterbacks in the Oklahoma system. Jay, he kind of messed up on Spencer Rattler, but I mean, he's done a pretty good job with Baker Mayfield, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, and now Caleb Williamson. So I think Lincoln Riley might be a good candidate. Or perhaps maybe Chicago Bears can go in the direction hiring Justin Fields' old head coach, Ryan Day. Ryan Day knows Justin Fields better than anyone. That would be a good fit here in Chicago. Or the Chicago Bears can go and find a way to hire Matt Campbell, very much success at Iowa State, and who helped work with David Montgomery. And to wrap it up, I think all of these candidates would be better than Matt Nagy right now. I think they all would make the Chicago Bears way better offensive. It's just a matter of who could do it better. And in my opinion, it comes down to three names: Brian Daboll, Greg Roman, and Kellen Moore, and also a wild card in there with Joe Brady and then those college coaches that I discussed. So any of these candidates would be really, really good. And I want to know who do you guys want us to hire? Let me know that in the comment section below. Are there any names that I forgot? Let me know in the comment section below. With that, welcome to the Watch the End Club. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to go and smash that like button, sack that like button, like Khalil Mack stacking quarterbacks. Make sure to go and hit bell notifications like Roquan Smith tackling and hitting guys on the football field. Make sure to go and comment what you thought about today's video. And with that all being said, I'm always a Bears fan through thick and thin, so bear down.